Welcome, everybody. I should say that first. I'm Jordan Zach, and the author and publisher of Progress Report. And more importantly, I'm here live with Florida Representative Dr. Anna Eskamani. You are by far the busiest person I know. Uh, just crossing the state of Florida nonstop and doing, constituent services, running for mayor, all that stuff. And so, very grateful, very grateful for you to be here and taking the time.
Well, thank you for the invitation, Jordan. Thanks for all that you do and telling stories, uplifting issues impacting corporate accountability, pushing for strong progressive values in politics, and of course for your flexibility, because I know this is 8:30 p.m. Eastern time and it's kind of late, but it was the only time I could do. So I do
No, it's
appreciate
great.
your flexibility and letting me come hop on so late in the evening too.
No, it's all good. I got a toddler who just fell asleep, so we're all set.
It's
Um,
great.
yeah, legislature's now out of session, but the work doesn't stop because I wanted to ask you first and foremost about thing everyone's talking about out of Florida, and I don't really like using the term, but I guess we can use it colloquially, the alligator Alcatraz. And maybe I wasn't paying, there's so much going on, right? There's just constantly shit flying against the wall, but I don't even know where this thing came from. All of a sudden, I was just seeing like, wait, they just built a prison in the middle of Everglades. Like, what
Yep.
happened? And how did this? It
Yep.
seems like it was just like overnight.
And that's the goal, right? I mean, this is a reminder that fascism doesn't wait. And I constantly have to remind a lot of my colleagues, not just legislators, but also public administrators who think that processes are going to protect us, that laws will shield us, that there's rules that everybody will follow. I think it's a really important reminder that fascists don't care about rules. They will just change them or make them up or just completely ignore them. And that's what's been happening in Florida for the last, at this point, 7, 8 years under the administration of Governor Ron DeSantis, empowered by MAGAism. Folks forget that DeSantis only won his first campaign, his first primary for governor, because of a Trump endorsement. And of course, there were tension between the two, but now they seem to massage that for now. And that's unfortunately fueled our politics in Florida to the far right. For quick context, those don't know, I'm a state representative. So I serve District 42, which is in the Central Florida area. I'm born and raised in Orlando. I went to public schools. I worked at Planned Parenthood before I ran for office. So I'm not a stranger to our political systems. In fact, I ran because I knew they were broken. But I got elected in 2018. I was the wave of first-time women candidates who ran after Trump 1.0. And of course, I inherited the DeSantis administration. It's the only executive branch I have ever known as elected official. And it has been challenging, to say the
Yeah.
least. And every session, we've had anti-immigrant legislation. So that's important too, because to some degree, the DeSantis administration has been, like the far right does, steadily methodically and strategically plotted a plan against immigrants to scapegoat every state problem on immigrants. Either it's immigrants are the problem based on the governor's rhetoric or the trans community, right? It's always been the scapegoating consistently. But to get the heart of your question and the Everglades detention facility specifically, this is born out of an executive order from 2023.
Mhm.
So in 2023, the state of Florida saw the arrival of refugees from Haiti arrive by boat in the Florida Keys. So this incident, this isolated incident, is what the governor weaponized to call for a state of emergency. He has renewed that state emergency since 2023 every 60 days. And for context, most people think about executive orders and emergencies and in the shape of hurricane preparedness and response. So it's the same type of executive authorities that he's using now on immigration. And it allows him to, as I mentioned earlier, he can freeze and pause any rules or laws he wants. He doesn't have to do any bids for contracts. Everything can be no bid contracts. And he can essentially have a lot of autonomy and authority. As lawmakers, as Democrats in the legislature, we actually did file an amendment to restrict his executive powers to only natural disasters. But as you can imagine, in the Republican majority legislature, that never passed. But we are seeing the result of just unfettered power and really manipulation of a system that is designed to keep people safe, not to cause harm. So we actually recently crafted a letter and collected signatures of other Democrats, basically pointing out how this executive order is no longer relevant, because he does cite the Biden administration being in power 4 times, and of course he takes data, which is definitely inflated, but he takes data about individuals who appear at the border for crossing. And of course, that data is no longer accurate either.
Right.
So we're fighting these battles and many layers, which I'm happy to dive deeper into. But the foundation that he has weaponized for himself, the foundation that allowed him to do this in a very opaque and fast way, is this executive authority.
And it
There are some records being shared that Collier County and Miami-Dade County, which if you're looking at the map of Florida, I mean, this is right in the middle of Florida. It is the bottom of Florida, right in the middle. So you have Collier County to the west, Miami-Dade to the east coast.
mhm,
And so this facility used to be called the Miami-Dade training facility. Or I'm
okay,
sorry, Collier-Dade training facility. So both counties like kind of sort of have this the jurisdictions, they're clear, but there also is collaboration there. And so Collier County had received communications from the state of Florida um, v- back in June that was, very, they were taken aback. And ironically, that's a conservative county. Like Collier
mm,
County is very Republican. So you had a Republican county commission that was caught off guard by what the
okay.
governor was doing. So they clearly kept everything under wraps. They operated in secrecy, and now they're straight up just ignoring not only public records requests that
Mhm,
myself and others have made, but they're also ignoring like basic state law on contracts, which I want to dive deeper into. But
yeah.
I mean, now that we know this is happening and we're fighting in all fronts, like there's still consistently manipulating the justice system, manipulating state law, and operating, with no accountability.
So states, I mean, like we generally think of ICE as a federal agency, and like this sort of this stuff really is sort of immigration stuff is really sort of federal thing. But I guess there's a law or a provision that allows a state to sort of become ICE, right? So like they can just kind of start, rounding people up, even though they don't have any criminal records. There's no reason for it. They just kind of like pick people off the street, and they've been authorized to do that.
So yes and no, right? So you're referencing what are called 287G agreements.
Right.
So this was actually created by the Clinton administration, and it allows for there to be collaboration between local law enforcement, local jails, and federal immigration enforcement. There are some limitations, hypothetically,
Right.
but there are different contracts, and the one that you're referencing is called task force, which is basically the show me your papers contractual agreement with ICE. And so it does deputize and empower local law enforcement, or in our case, also Florida Highway Patrol, the statewide troopers, to operate as if they are ICE. So they can pull people over, and there is evidence to say that they are racially profiling in their decision to pull people over. But we do know is that they're pulling they're pulling people over based on very minor traffic violations. So maybe a taillight's broken, maybe they were going over the speed limit slightly, et cetera, et cetera. So they're finding reasons that in most cases would not lead to a pullover, to pull over individuals in their work trucks, to pull over individuals on their way to daycare, on their
Yeah.
way to dropping off their kid at school, and asking for an ID. And if you don't have an ID, in most cases, that's a civil offense. I mean, they'll just fine you, right? They'll look you up in their
Mhm.
database. They'll give you a fine. But now they're using it as a reason to arrest you. And so folks are going to their local county jail, and when they get to the jail, I first of all want to really stress the importance of knowing your rights, because you don't have to disclose your immigration status at all to
Right.
anyone, even when you're in the jail. Because this has been a challenge where folks feel fearful and scared, and they'll forget that they have rights, even in a place
Mhm.
of incarceration. What's happening in our case is that these are folks who, they're no real, there's no criminal violation. It's a civil violation, not criminal. But they show up at the jail. The jail then searches their information in a national database, and that's where the ICE hold could be alerted. And then this person will have an ICE hold in our case for 72 hours. ICE has 72 hours to pick them up. That's a state policy. And of course, now ICE is coming multiple times a day, oftentimes through contracts. So
Mm.
they paid for private contractors to be the ones that pick up individuals, bring them to the ICE ERO or to the Everglades, which is happening here in Orange County. We have folks with no criminal background being detained at the Orange County Jail and then being transported to the Everglades Immigrant Detention Facility. Now, the reason why I said yes and no, right, is
Mhm.
because these 27G agreements are very prevalent, obviously, in the state of Florida. If you look at a map of the country,
Mhm.
Florida is bright, bright, bright red. We have
Yeah.
the most 27G agreements, even though there is no requirement to do so by state law. But there's pressure, there's bullying, there's
Right.
intimidation. And so even colleges, university law enforcement, police departments have signed on to these agreements.
Wow.
And so there is a grassroots effort to push back on that. And we've had some success in Orange County. In fact, our commissioners are reevaluating their contract on the county jail. But what no one can stop is the fact that FHP as a whole has been deputized.
Yeah.
But the detention facility, there's a giant question mark over the Everglades detention facility, what authority they have to detain individuals on federal law. Because
Mm.
as far as I understand it, and we're looking for clarity on this, there is no 270 agreement that the Florida Department of Emergency Management has. And so it's very unclear what authority FDM has to detain individuals at this detention facility in the middle of the Everglades. And it's worth noting that the folks who are there have no due process.
Mm.
We've already heard reports of court appointments having to be canceled or rescheduled because the state will not let them get to them. Lawyers have already filed suit because they cannot access their clients. And so it's been a nightmare. It's been a
Yeah.
complete nightmare. But there is a big question mark over what authority they actually have to do this, and that is a legal question we are exploring right now.
And so basically, like, these local or state highway patrol are deputized by ICE to arrest people, and they just, like, throw them in this place in the Everglades and not let them out. They just, like, put them up in chains, and they're just, like, stuck there for no reason. I mean, obviously for no reason other than, like, the racism, I guess, but they're just
Right.
allowed to just keep them there forever. I'm not allowed, but they are just keeping them
I
forever.
mean, that's kind of what's happening. I mean, to dive deeper into it, for just for context for folks, on July 3rd, well, on July 2nd, right? So July 1st, President Trump arrived at this detention facility for a photo op. And it was propped up in about 8 days. It's all tent. It is tent city. It's about 6 inches off the ground, not flood proof
Yeah.
whatsoever. In fact, we already saw a contract for flood mitigation. I mean, it's a clearly not safe in every way. But it's 6 inches off the ground. It's tents, the same tents you'd see anywhere else at a outdoor event. These are not sophisticated infrastructure at all. And air conditioning is pumped in, but basically it's like plastic tubes with holes cut into them. That's the AC, that's the HVAC system. No running water, no power line. Everything is generator or trucked in and out. And of course, as I noted earlier, no big contracts. So people are making millions off of this, millions off of this. In fact, based on the contracts that I was able to pull before the state of Florida removed them, it just to prop this enterprise up is more than $200 million.
Wow.
But with that said, July 1st, Trump was there. And then on July 2nd, that evening, detainees started to arrive. As soon as we got word of that, I looked at my colleagues and I said, we need to go down there.
Right.
This is unacceptable. This is wrong. And we can't just host a virtual press conference. We can't just put out, tough letters. Like we need to show up.
Mhm.
And so, I mean, I literally made this decision at like 5 o'clock. I was like, we have to go. And I was on the road
Uh,
by 8 p.m. heading to Hialeah, got Airbnb. and then the next morning, afternoon, we headed to the Everglades. So it's myself and four other lawmakers. As you probably heard, when
Yeah.
we arrived, we cited our statutory authority to visit detention centers unannounced. We explained why we need to do this. And of course, we were denied that access by the state of Florida. My first takeaway from being there, by the way, was nobody's fucking in charge. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, there were state employees from multiple agencies out there, DFS, FDLE, FDM, very unclear who's actually responsible for this facility. And of course, come to find that the entire operation is mostly by private contracts.
Right.
Folks who are not going through background checks, folks who are not trained to manage a facility like this at all. And of course, we've heard more horror stories from this environment.
Yeah.
But at the time, we were told by the state of Florida, it is not safe for you to tour. Which our response was, it's not safe for us to tour. How's it safe for people to be detained here, right?
Right.
So we ended up not being able to get that access, and since then we have filed a lawsuit, the five of us, citing state statute, and that's a separate court battle that we're fighting right now. In the interim, members of Congress were planning to make their own unannounced visit the following Saturday. So not
Hmm.
that Saturday, because it was the July 4th holiday. We went on July 3rd, but the following Saturday. Someone leaked that to the state.
Hmm.
And because the state found out about another unannounced visit, which would be another PR disaster for them, they announced a scheduled, curated, scripted tour. And they invited state lawmakers and members of Congress. So despite our lawsuit fighting for unfettered access, I feel like it was very important that I still get whatever access I can
Sure.
to collect information, to gather facts, and to ask hard questions. And so we went back that Saturday. And though the state tried to curate and script and sanitize this tour, I can tell you that it is impossible to sanitize people in cages.
Yeah.
And that is what we saw. Not only are individuals, when they arrive, chained at their wrists and at their ankles and then chained together and put into orange jumpsuits, but they're given wristbands that denote how the state defines their risk, if you will.
Yeah.
So you have three colors: yellow, orange, and red. Yellow being like no criminal background, only civil infractions, red being something like felonies. But it's worth noting that there are folks who are wearing red wristbands that had a felony charge decades ago,
Hmm.
already served time,
Sure.
and are back out in society, fully contributing to the tax base,
Right.
working in jobs. So even the red wristband does not necessarily mean this person's dangerous, right?
Right.
It's a misnomer. And then recently, today, they apparently added blue wristbands to denote medical issues, which I'm like, okay, so 2 weeks later, like you have a
Right.
blue wristbands now. Like, I mean, like it's just it's so bad. Like this place is not never should have been open, but I will say it wasn't even ready to be open. Like all this was such a grift. It was all about selling merchandise, all about DeSantis looking big and bad in the face of his base. Like none of this is functional. None of this makes sense. Like none of this is good policy. But this is when you have politicians more committed to optics and to talking points and to actual governance. Like this is what happens, right? And so, with that said, these cages are horrific. I mean, it's 32 men in one cage,
Jesus.
8 cages in one tent, 3 toilets, 3 small metal toilets in each cage. They're just in the cage. It's not like there's a
Yeah.
door in the cage. 3 phones per cage, and we've already heard reports of toilets backing up, sewage spills, um, phones not working, power going out, air conditioning not working, people, being brutalized by staff there, tortured in the sense of being forced to stand outside in the sun, surrounded by mosquitoes, and not being allowed back in. I mean, and that's something else too I will note is the mosquitoes.
Right.
So I'm a born and raised Floridian. I am used to mosquitoes. Like
Right.
I'm not, I might be a city slicker, but I'm from Florida, so like I totally get it.
Sure.
Mosquitoes are a part of life here. This is a whole different degree of
Yeah.
mosquito. I mean,
It's swamp, right?
it's insane, Jordan. Like when we went there the first time, this it was like I was actually wearing shorts, and we rendezvoused at the Cypress, big Cypress Grove Visitor Center first. Like the 5 of us met there and then drove together to the entrance. And the second I stepped out of my car and I looked around, I was like, "Oh, these are not love bugs. Like these are
Yeah.
mosquitoes." And but it was so many, right? Like they were just you could see them buzzing around in your car immediately. Like the second you get into your car, there was at least 30 mosquitoes inside the car because you opened the door. Like it was just like a vacuum. And it ebbs and flows based on if it rained the day before, based on all these other factors. And so they are, I mean, the mosquitoes are not just outside, they're also inside. Like they are
Right.
in the building, and so that alone is torture. I mean, just that environment and living and working there is it's deeply inhumane. So to answer your question, that's the environment. That's and so we were told by Kevin Guthrie, the director of Florida Department of Emergency Management, a man who has built his careers on responding to hurricanes, who now is infamous and known for building a detention facility with no due process. He told us that every person here has final deportation orders, which is not true.
Right. Right.
Absolutely not true. We know it's not true because we have DACA recipients who are there. We have folks who have appointments with their judge. We have folks who have married US citizens and are getting their visas updated. Like, it's just
Yeah.
not true. But he also said that every person here will be deported within 2 weeks. Like, that's their timeline.
Okay.
And as I sit with you right now, I can tell you point blank that we have several people, and we're in contact with detainees and their loved ones who have been there for more than 14 days and no idea what's gonna happen next. No idea. There have been some folks, so last week there was this major, um, uh, question that, again, the state has not answered, of folks being relocated. So we saw the population of this facility. Again, there's no public data. Everything we gather is from loved ones who are calling us,
Right.
detainees who are calling us. Like, we're just every piece of information I have to share with you is from whistleblowers, it's from detainees, it's from their families. Like, the state is not sharing anything with us. That's really, really important to understand. And so we were hearing that the cages were becoming more empty, people were leaving, and then we were hearing from loved ones after the fact that their husband, their son, what have you, got relocated to Chrome, which is in Miami, or got relocated to El Paso, or got relocated to. So they were moving people out, and there was a big question of why.
Right.
And I was thinking it might have been because we were getting to that 2-week mark and nobody was getting deported, so they had to move people around for some reason. But honestly, I don't even know the answers. Like, it's so unsettling because we don't have the facts of who is there, why are they there, how long will they be there for, what their options are, how will they get to a court hearing? Like, there's just no clarity. It really is a black hole. And of course, that's why you have,
Hmm.
multiple legal challenges. The other one, the big one I'll make note of before I forget, is a litigation filed by Friends of the Everglades and the Center for Biological Diversity based on environmental policy.
Okay.
And so this is probably the most important argument, in the sense that the environmental impact cannot be ignored. And of course, the state of Florida is playing games. And not only are they attempting to distance themselves from the federal government because this lawsuit is filed on federal law. So they're trying to say that this is not a federal facility, it's a state facility. We don't have to follow federal law, which is not true, but that's what people are trying to create. But they've also yesterday in court argued that the lawsuit was filed in the wrong jurisdiction, which again is not true, but they're
Hmm.
trying to judge shop. They're trying to get a judge that's more favorable to them. So it's been just one thing after the other, Jordan,
Yeah.
and really a test of everyone's focus and resilience. And I have also been going after, as I mentioned earlier, the contracts,
Right.
which just really quickly to explain that process. So Florida has 2 main websites that they're required to post contracts. And this is not unique to this facility. It is a process that they do for every agency, and it's called FLAIR and FAX. They're both acronyms.
Okay.
And so myself and a few others were checking these websites for updates, right? Because some activists were on the ground trying to identify the vendors based on brands and logos.
Mhm.
My approach was look at the data. You
Right,
know,
right.
where are these contracts coming from? And so, the grassroots versus like the grass data, I guess, right? Like trying to match information and see what we can find. And so these contracts started posting, including the management contract was with a company called CRS,
Okay.
and they posted a contract. The state of Florida posted a contract giving them $75 million, and they outlined in this contract the job positions and the hourly rates, and they're excessive, as you can imagine. The lowest salary was $38 an hour.
And these a
I
lot of
mean, it
these
was
places, yeah, a lot of these people are like DeSantis cronies, right? A lot of these like people are donors and
100%.
friends, and right now it's like, making these people rich while torturing people.
No big contracts, all to friends and donors of Governor DeSantis, of the Attorney General, of the Republican Party of Florida. Absolutely. Yeah. CDR Health is the healthcare provider. They got big contracts during the COVID-19 pandemic as well. Um, all of these companies have very
Yeah,
close ties to political leaders. I mean, it's such a grift, right? It's such a
yeah,
grift. And so I post these contracts, and all of a sudden, reporters are asking me for copies, and I'm like, "Yeah, it's on the Facts and Flare website." Like, I remember a reporter asked me, "Did you get these through a public records request?" And I was like, "Well, I mean, I have made that request, but
right.
no, they're not responding to my public records request,
Mhm.
but I found it off Facts and Flare." And they were like, "We can't find them." And I'm like, "What do you mean? That's where I got them." You know what I
Yeah,
mean? And
yeah,
then we go back and we're like, "Oh my god, the contracts are gone." Like, they literally pulled them off the internet. And then they re-uploaded them over the weekend with only the cover sheets.
right.
And
Useless.
and today they told a right-leaning, media outlet, who I will say wrote a really balanced article. They're a
Hmm.
libertarian outlet called
Is the
Reason
reason one? Yeah,
Magazine. Yeah, and so they actually wrote, like, a really good balanced piece, and it was so frustrating because I had asked the department where the contracts went, why were they removed, and then I asked them, so why were the contracts re-uploaded with just cover sheets? Never got an answer, but they responded back to Reason Magazine
of
and
course.
said, "I know, so obnoxious." And they said it had proprietary information. Like, what are you fucking talking about? No, it didn't. Like the
Information you don't want people to
salaries.
know, but not proprietary information.
Exactly. There's no trade secret here. These are not even bids. These are no bid. So
Right.
like you're not competing with anyone. Like you just got a contract for funsies. Like, you don't have to do anything to get it, right?
Yeah,
Like, I mean, it's just so obnoxious. But it goes back to my point, right? About how they don't care about the law. They don't care about following rules. They don't care about morals or ethics. And so we have to be really aggressive in
yeah,
how we counter that, right? Because you can't win or get to your goal if you're playing by the same rules because they
right.
don't care, right? They do not care.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting is that this is so. I mean, you said the cruelty is the point, and maybe the grift is the point, but it seems like it it's just this excessive thing. They're spending hundreds of millions of dollars, and this is a state that like cuts education funding. This is a state that like
Right.
cuts so much funding
Right.
elsewhere, and like you want like certainly not fiscally conservative.
No, and that's such a good point. The $500 million being spent on this environmental disaster of a detention facility with no due process in the middle of the Everglades. That's your money. That's taxpayer money. Whether the feds reimburse us or not, which is still unknown, it's
Right.
still public money, and that could go towards huge teacher pay increases. That can go towards addressing the affordable housing crisis. At the end of the day, the far right doesn't have any real policy solutions to any
Right.
of our problems. So all they do is distract and deflect. And
Yeah.
and and I, unfortunately, a lot of folks who voted for this are learning the hard way, and they're seeing their families impacted. They're having loved ones get detained. They're seeing their costs not go down, right? And I
Right.
think in the case of Florida, it's going to get worse because we're so reliant on the essential workers that
Mhm.
are overwhelmingly of immigrant descent, whether it's TPS, whether it's asylum seekers. some of our biggest sectors, from agriculture to construction to tourism, are reliant on the hard work of immigrants.
Yeah, isn't it sort of like, I mean, this predates Trump winning because last year they enacted some laws that really kind of chased people out. But even worse now, from what I understand, it's like people aren't showing up to work, construction workers, farm workers. Like it's the economy is down in the sense that like a lot of people, Hispanic people are not going out and shopping because they're terrified. Like this has ancillary impact on everybody.
Oh, 100%. And the one point I'll make too is obviously this issue is getting the most attention out of Florida. But we have so many fights in Florida. Like another
Yeah.
topic that does not get a lot of attention is academic freedom and the attacks on higher education.
No. Yeah.
And the state of Florida is currently pursuing the creation of their own accrediting body that would basically be a far right accrediting body. They snuck $4 million in state money to go towards this initiative. And without a doubt, the Trump administration is going to approve it. And it's going to decimate. I mean, it's going to destroy the quality of higher education in this country.
Sure.
And for what, right? For more friends of these politicians to get cushy government jobs while they preach small government. They all cash in government checks, right? And uh, the ripple effect of that. Here's the challenge we always have, right? In this work, people don't always see the effect immediately.
Hmm.
I mean, same thing with the bad budget bill out of
Right.
Congress, right? They tried to taper its
After
impact.
the elections.
Correct. So we also need to do a much better job in communicating these points, and even on immigration, bring it back to the economic concern.
Hmm.
Again, the grift, regardless of your political affiliation, you're going to be upset about the grift. But you're going to be upset about no big contracts. It's not a free market. They're going to friends of the governor. They're getting paybacks on the back end. Like nobody likes that shit. The environmental concerns. I've had some Republicans reach out to me upset about anything being constructed in the middle of the Everglades. They built a new road. They spent $11 million on asphalt to build a new road in the Everglades. Like I saw that road. I had to drive on it and I took photos of it and parked in it. Like it is unbelievable to create new roads in the middle of the Everglades. And but again, to always remind people that these public dollars could instead be spent on making your life better, not tormenting and targeting hardworking immigrants that contribute so much to civil society, that are the foundation of this country and of our economy, and deserve and are able to have due process based on the
Yeah.
US Constitution.
So we've seen like Florida has moved to the right, right? Over the last bunch of years, people have moved there. During COVID, whatever reason, like there's been lots of registration. The Republican Party is much more effective than the Democratic Party in Florida. All these things, like, but we're also seeing, nationwide, people are now not so hot on Trump's immigration policy. All of a sudden that's flipped. And so, like you said, you've had Republicans reach out to you, or people starting to see the consequences. Like, I don't want to put this in partisan terms, but is there, you think, a realization where people are like, oh, maybe this has gone too far?
It's a great question. My first thought, I mean, I have to be self-reflective and critical of my own party here. The reality is that Democrats have historically failed on immigration because there's been a fear to talk about immigration, in the sense that, polling has told you it's not popular, that I mean, even folks in my district, like immigration was not only was it not ranked as a major issue in my state house race, but then when you ask people questions about their attitudes, it was not the strongest frame, if you will.
Right.
So when I look at that doesn't my takeaway is not, "Ooh, I should avoid this topic," right? My takeaway is, "Okay, so I need to actually talk about this more and uplift the positive contributions of immigrants, educate people on due process, educate people on the fact that seeking asylum is not illegal, right? Like
Right.
that's on me to like combat the misinformation. Not to say that it's the main issue I campaign on, because I'm a state house representative. Like immigration historically is not in my
Right.
purview,
Yeah.
right? It's become one of my issues because I have a ridiculous governor that nationalizes everything. But at the end of the
Right.
day, like as state house representative, I'm a local girly. Like my issues are more state
Right.
based and local government, right? But again, when I saw that polling, I'm like, okay, we got to change the frame. We have to change
Okay.
the narrative here. Unfortunately, for many Democrats, national Democrats especially, they see that and they're like, ooh, avoid it. Don't talk about it. We
Right.
can't talk about it. And when you make that decision, you are ceding the narrative to the far right. And you're allowing for only one side to define this issue, to legislate on this issue. And I mean, again, I want to be sincere in this. Obviously, there was a bipartisan bill in Congress to try to address
Mhm.
collective concerns regarding challenges at the border, and Trump stopped it. So I do want to be thoughtful to that. But I mean, at the end of the day, there are Democrats even now who will say, I don't talk about immigration. I don't talk
Right.
about immigration. And so that needs to change because we need to be able to fight every battle at the same time. And we need to craft strong, consistent messaging and stick to it. And I do think a part of that is the power of personal storytelling. It's elevating the atrocities that are taking place in courtrooms across this country and detainment centers everywhere,
Mhm.
and really humanize the issue as much as possible. And so, with that said, for the folks who voted for Trump are not impacted, we need to welcome these folks, to our circles. We should
Right.
not um, dismiss or even mock, though I know that can be tempting. But you have to, I would not do this work if I didn't believe in the power of evolution.
Right.
If I didn't believe in a person's capacity to have empathy, to listen, to learn, and to evolve. And I need to be a facilitator in that. I can't just be an observer of it. So I do my part to give people space to evolve. I mean, there's so many folks that I'm talking to right now who have loved ones who are detained. Not once have I asked who they voted for. I mean, some of them are you know, uh, they're diverse couples, like they're
Sure.
American citizens married to immigrants. Never once have I asked any of those type of questions because it doesn't matter. Like I'm going to help you regardless of your political background or not. But my hope is that because I am accessible and authentic and here to help, that alone will shift people's mindset. So
Yeah.
you have to earn trust, you have to earn support, and the reality is that much of Trump's success electorally this last cycle, I would say, was based upon the exploitation of grievances, and some Democrats just ignore the grievances and paint them as being misplaced. I don't think that's smart. I think grievances are grievances, and your crisis is my crisis, even if I don't understand, even if I have never experienced that, even if I think it's misplaced. It's still a grievance. You still have to acknowledge it and figure out how to address it. And what Trump did was acknowledge the grievance, say, I see you, I feel you. You know who's the to blame? Immigrants and trans people, right? Like
Right.
that was the pivot. And so again, if you ignore the grievances, then you're not going to actually be solution oriented because people across this country, they are hurting. They feel left out by their government and they want a disruptor. And I mean, obviously that's what's happening right now, but not in their best interest.
Yeah.
This disruption is in the interest of one man and one man only, and that's Donald Trump. So we need to be aggressive in welcoming others to the space, but also that long-term power building, which is why, as you know, like I'm very committed to voter registration, vote by
Mhm.
mail. Like we're doing 20% of organizing. I'm running for city of Orlando mayor in 2027, and
Right.
we've already knocked on nearly 8,000 doors in my
Yeah.
district.
You announced
And
last year.
so 100, yeah, I mean, it's a 2 years away, and we're already knocking on doors, but that's a part of our approach is we build relationships, we get out early so that you get to actually know us and
Right.
count on us versus just showing up around, GOTV,
I'm a New Yorker, and so we just had a mayoral election or a primary.
right?
Um, it was not the way most Democratic establishment wanted it to go, which is great. And Zoran Mondani won. It's tough because you were a trailblazer. You ran in 2018. You have a national profile. You've been doing things differently than the Florida Democratic Party, and so you have already blazed your own trail. I think there, but like watching his campaign, I'm sure you did now that you're running for mayor, like, what did you take from that? Either as like a validation or like, oh, this is a good idea, I could do it, or
Yeah.
what did you think watching it?
That's a really great question. I do want to acknowledge a comment in the chat too about we have to get them to see why they can't get ahead, they can't get a job,
Mm,
and I think that's a great segue to Madami. I mean, at the end of the day, a lot of these grievances are tied to corporate exploitation.
mm,
And so we need to be able to elect people that are willing to challenge corporate greed because at the end of the day, if you're upset because you don't like your job or your health insurance sucks or you don't have health insurance or you're navigating debt like student loan debt, what have you, there's a common thread there, right?
right,
And so it all goes back to corporate exploitation. And you need to elect people that are willing to challenge corporate greed, to call out bad actors, to support unions and labor, who are willing to go to the picket line, who are willing to pass bills on taxation that closes corporate tax loopholes. So I don't want to negate that piece of this
right, sure.
conversation. I mean, even in the context of detention facilities, it's private contractors and private
Mm,
prison companies that are the ones benefiting the most out of all of this. So,
course, yeah.
but to the New York City election, so um, I definitely had local New York City news on that night
Mhm.
and watched Zoran's speech, his victory speech as well, and I found it very affirming, to be honest, Jordan.
Yeah,
I had a reporter obviously across the country, folks across the world, everybody's talking about it. And so my local paper reached out to me and they were asking for a comment. They said, "Was there anything that so based on his election, is there anything that you would do differently in your race?" And I was like, "No, I mean, his race is my race." Like
right,
I was like, "No, it's the same playbook." Like we we are a volunteer driven campaign. We talk about corporate exploitation and corporate accountability. We are supportive and aspirational towards public options for different needs, including
right.
insurance and childcare and so forth. We're grassroots. We knock on doors. We raise money from the grassroots. And so for me, it was very affirming to say,
Mm,
yeah, this is what the future of the Democratic Party needs to look like. It needs to be younger, it needs to be bolder, needs to be people centric, it needs to be willing to call out the status quo that has failed working families.
right.
And I also think what I find so appealing about Zoran is that he's also very collaborative. Like as I
Mm,
mentioned earlier about embracing people who evolve. Like he is so good natured about everything. Like he makes fun of himself, which is so endearing, and I try to
good,
do that as well. I think part of it is you just don't take yourself that seriously, right?
right.
But he doesn't respond to his haters with any vitriol.
Mm,
He's just very human about it, and I think that also keeps the door open for people to support him who haven't always supported him.
right,
And I'm proud to say that even in a place like Florida, in my
right.
district, I won 2 precincts that voted for Trump. So 2 precincts in Orlando, Florida, that voted for Donald Trump, voted for Anna Eskamani. And these are folks who voted based on a perception that I am accessible, which is true,
Mm,
a perception that I'm a problem solver, which is true, a perception that I'm also a disruptor, which is true. You could argue that those same perceptions for some apply to Trump. Even
yeah,
again, I think it's fake. Like I think it's faux populism. I know it's faux populism. But at the end of the day, people saw those similarities, and that's what
mm,
drew them to vote for a mixed ticket. So, and a part of it for me too is I am knocking on your door. I am talking to you. I'm not
right.
ignoring you. I don't dismiss you because you trolled me on the internet. I mean, I can't
Mm,
tell the number of folks that my first interaction with them is like them saying terrible things about me online, and then I meet them in person, and I'm like nice to them, and I don't ignore them, and I don't like take the bait, right? Like just
right,
don't take the bait. And it's incredibly surprising what could come out of that if you just don't
right.
take the bait.
You're not worried about the haters becoming waiters at your table of success.
Definitely not. I mean, part of me is just kind of like just like I try not to take myself too seriously. I'm not going to take them that seriously.
Right,
Now, to be clear, like you have to be mindful of safety and security. And I worked at
sure.
Planned Parenthood before I ran for office, so like safety and security is it's not only important to me, but it's a field I have a lot of experience in. And I actually did my PhD on crisis communication, so I'm very, very very intentional on
Yeah.
reducing risk and reporting things that need to be reported.
Yeah, you
But
should.
yeah, like the average dude on the internet that, calls me fat or something, I'm like, whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I feel bad for you. This is what you do with your spare time, right? And so I think it's really important not, again, just don't take that bait.
Well, and so tell me a little bit, like, real quickly, like, your vision for Orlando. I mean, you're in a very red state, and they have all this preemption and stuff, so there's things that, like I mean, in New York, we're in a blue state, but we have a legislature or governor doesn't really wanna do too much, so we're kind of in the same boat a
Right.
little bit. But, like, what do you see, like, what is Orlando can be this different place in Florida, right? This place that
Yeah.
is, different than the rest of the state. Like, what do you see for it?
Well, I think it's important to note that Orlando and Orange County as a whole really is a contrast to the rest of the state. Not only have we seen just the incredible leadership of so many different elected officials come out of Orlando, from Congressman Maxwell Frost to State Senator Carlos Guillermo Smith, and of
Mm,
course to myself. Like it really is becoming a home base to a lot of strong, out loud, progressive Democratic leaders that are shifting the narrative, that are fighting back with grit and grace, and bringing people together in meaningful ways. We're all centered on problem solving, delivering the best constituent services, while also making government more accessible and engaging in 24/7 organizing. With that said, the city of Orlando itself has had the same leadership for over 2 decades.
mm,
We don't have term limits, so most of our city commissioners and mayor have been there for either 2 decades or more.
yeah.
We have now, for the first time, it will be 25 years, an open mayor's race. So
Wow.
it's quite historic, and what excites me is the opportunity to really write that next chapter for our city beautiful. We're a younger city compared to those around us, so
Mhm,
we're still quite malleable. We can still define what Orlando's future is, and our population has shifted so much where we're becoming home to a lot of folks who grew up in Orlando and are moving back to raise their
mhm,
families, to support our public schools, to contribute to the culture of the city. And that is so inspirational to me, in the sense that we have the opportunity to activate a new generation of Orlandonians to really build a city that centers on residents over visitors, that
mhm,
centers on people over corporations, and really prioritizes the key my key platforms of course, housing affordability. Housing is a human
mhm,
right, alongside expansion of reliable public transportation, and
huge.
then huge, absolutely huge. And these two issues, I would say, are together.
Yeah.
Housing affordability and transportation are one and the same for me.
Mhm,
They need not only, of course, address the cost of living in general, but it better connects our communities. It builds smarter neighborhoods and addresses the crisis of homelessness, which
yeah,
is absolutely present in our community right now. Um, but then the third aspect, of course, for me, centers on uh, uh, safety and security as a whole, which means regardless of who you love, your documentation status, your disability status, that you can live a wholehearted life
mhm,
in a safe and secure environment. So that is very intersectional for me, because it takes shape as, okay, how do you make sure that your child is safe? We need to prioritize universal childcare, right? How to make sure that your elder can age in place. Okay, that means hurricane preparedness. That means addressing the cost of utilities so their dialysis machine never goes out.
mhm,
What if you are someone who has experienced police brutality before, right? Like, then we need to ensure that we are training responsible law enforcement officers, that we're investing in violence intervention programs proactively, that we're diversifying our law enforcement, et cetera, et cetera. And so I'm a policy wonk.
yeah,
Driven by good governance. And so I want to craft a city that is participatory, where
mhm,
budgets are crafted with the public's involvement, that we are transparent in all of our decision making, that we start decisions with you, not from the top, but from the bottom. And that's what drives me to want to do this. And of course, a lot of folks who have wanted me to run for governor, run for statewide office, which it's very humbling. But I
Mhm.
but I do think it's such a unique opportunity to help lead a growing city in this moment of political chaos. And the goal for me too is to prove to folks that when you elect leaders like me, your life gets better. And I think that's the recipe for democratic success long term is we can't run on just talking points, right? Like we have to
Mhm.
build infrastructure and prove our effectiveness. And that can really start at a hyper local level.
And you s once the one thing you said, and I don't want to keep you too much longer, but you said residents over visitors, and a lot of cities, I mean, Orlando obviously is a built town built on tourism, but a lot of cities, like, give special tax breaks to special entertainment districts, they really prioritize these, like, big corporations, saying they'll create jobs and they're not really good jobs, and, Orlando, I imagine, has done a lot of that, and so, hearing residents over visitors is, I think, a huge thing.
Oh, absolutely. Orlando is not a company town, but it does operate like that. The two biggest political actors in our community would be developers and the tourism industry,
Mhm.
from theme parks, hoteliers, and so forth.
Sure.
One of the biggest topics we always debate is referred to as the tourism development tax, also known as the bed tax.
Mhm.
This is the tax that visitors or anyone who stays in a hotel pays per night. It generates in Orange County upwards of $350 million in revenue, and yet it is restricted to the promotion of tourism. And so we can't use it for things like
What's the point of
a
that?
train. We can't use it for a train. We can't use it even for water quality needs. We can't use it for anything but the promotion of tourism, entertainment venues that are all, privately owned and we subsidize.
Absurd.
And we do have public facilities as well, but those public facilities, like our convention center, which is Pentagon sized and now being expanded through TDT, uh, that subsidizes the private market at the same time.
Sure.
And there's a reason
Yeah.
why no hotel will ever build a convention center the size of ours because they're gonna lose money on it.
Right,
And
right.
so that is a big issue for me is flexibility to the TDT. We work on that in the legislature every year. And then to your point, there are so many other corporate tax loopholes from separate reporting to uh, uh, something called the urban high crime tax break, which is supposed to be a state and local program that helps create new jobs in areas of high crime and blight. But the way the lines are drawn, it primarily benefits two major corporations, Universal Studios and Publix. And Publix is a grocery store
Yeah.
chain. These are not creating high paying jobs at all. And
No.
they also don't need a tax break because they're pretty profitable. We actually, the county, the road for the new theme park Epic was built by public dollars. It was $150 million from the CRA in 2019. And again, like these are dollars that could instead go towards universal childcare or go
Sure.
towards giving our teachers pay raises or go towards housing affordability projects. Now, granted, I will say some of our accountability efforts have led the theme parks in particular to build their own affordable housing projects.
Okay.
So I do want to emphasize the power of advocacy in the sense that
Yeah.
it's not by no means doesn't compensate what it does not compensate the broken system, but it does speak to the peer pressure and the advocacy of pushing these companies to realize that they're exploiting the system and it's bad PR for them and they need to do better. And
Right.
so that there's been that evolution in the last 5 years because of our organizing efforts, but yeah, it needs to change. And so I'm not a yes girl. Like I always joke in legislature that I'm an Eskamano, and you have to get me to a Eskamani. So I don't start at a yes, I start a no on bills, and you have to explain to me why your bill deserves a yes
Sure.
vote. Like you just explain it to me. I'm not trying to be scary or intimidating, but I need to know like why is your bill a good bill, right? And be able to defend it and answer questions on it. Um, and so that's my approach to policymaking. And I do think it's important to be critical of any line item that comes your way, of any bill that's proposed, to think through the consequences and to ask yourself, does this benefit the collective good? And that's why, even right now, even though Orlando is seen as a democratic city, not all of our venues are labor. Not all of our venues are
Right.
union. We have public venues that don't have union employees. So all of that and more needs to change. And it's one of the more like optimistic, forward thinking parts of my life right now. So, so I'm excited about it too. And we're focused on it, but obviously we're carrying a lot all the
Sure.
time. And I'm still in the legislature. I term out next year. So right now it is a bit of a balancing act of,
Yeah.
running a strong campaign and working on policy and building a team while also maintaining our legislative affairs and constituent services, while also leading on statewide voter registration through
Hmm.
my voter reg organization, People Power for Florida.
Right. The
So,
only the only
and
people registering Democrats probably in the state right now.
at this point, that's what it feels like, and we don't
Yeah.
have a huge team, right? Like, I have a pretty small operation. My budget at most this year will be 500,000. Like, it's not a big
Yeah.
budget, but it's a great volunteer-driven program, and I'm proud of our team, but, yeah, we can't do it alone. And then, by the way, for those watching, the salary of a state representative in Florida is only $28,000. So I have a full-time day job on top of
That's
this
nuts to
one.
me.
So, like, throughout the day, like, I'm responding to my boss, I'm putting together work products for my day job, while also, like, responding to interview requests, helping constituents, checking my emails, working on longer projects, scheduling out email blasts because we have a very busy weekend of events. So yeah, it's a lot.
It'll be nice
Definitely a
when
lot.
you win. I think you will win. When you win, to not have to work with a lot of people in the legislature, like say a Randy. People are now figuring out, and we've known this a long time, but a Randy Fine,
Right,
one of the worst
right.
people I've ever like come across. I don't know how you like stay in the same rooms like that, like that.
Well, it's definitely a good reminder that some of the politicians that are the most egregious start at the local level. So,
Yeah.
what a reminder to like not ignore your state legislatures, because I mean, from Matt Gaetz and Randy Fine and others, they all started in the state house.
Ugh,
So, it's really important to remember that.
yeah, you've come across a lot of creeps, and so I commend you for sticking with it in Florida. We will. Where can people find you, and where can they donate to your campaign?
Oh, I appreciate that question. So, this is my first ever Substack live. So, thanks for tuning in. I'm sure there'll be many more. But if folks want to follow us online, we're on most major platforms at Anna for Florida. It's all spelled out with two N's. So, Anna for Florida. And then, of course, our website for the mayor's race is annafororlando.com. And you can donate there. But that's all spelled out with two N's, annafororlando.com. And we do have our social media handles for the mayor's race. That's the handle as well. But Anna for Florida is more active on state issues. And so I definitely encourage you to follow us on both. But Anna for Florida will give you more Florida news.
Awesome. Well, listen, thank you so much, and I would say have a good night. I know you're gonna go back to work, so
Literally, yep. I'm staring at like stacks of papers I need to organize and clean, and I do have emails I have to get to, but hoping to go to sleep at a decent time. But this is officially, I mean, every day's been 15, 16-hour days. So um,
incredible.
appreciate folks tuning in and being part of the conversation. But hope to see you soon, Jordan.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
feel like I keep missing you in person all the time, but
I
hopefully,
know. I gotta get down. I gotta get down to Florida again, or get. I think we've been in DC at the same time, but just have crossed. But we
yeah,
will. We
yeah.
will. I saw I had the last year, and I'll see you soon.
I look forward to it. I'll
All right.
have a good night. Say hi to the family.
Bye. All right.
Bye,
Take it
everyone.
easy.